Get out your notebooks, everyone. This is the first episode of Puck Talk CS this off season. And me and Steve are feeling pretty summer now. Like, thank you. It's summer vacay. My parents are teachers, Steve. It's summer vacation, man. Let's go. Sandals in the sand. We got the Chisty Vipers on, man. You got the cutoff going. It's that time of the year. We're doing player grades today of the core New York Rangers players. We decided last minute we want to do the core guys today. We're going to do another epi for kind of the rookies, see where they're at next year. But Steve, it's great to see you, dog. We're catching the Yankees tonight, getting Bronx bombed at Yankee Stadium. Before then, take out your notebooks. It's grade time. Professor Chives, not Mike Mugno, the real professor.
Man, it only took the season to end for this disastrous year to end to finally bring out that excitement and energy from you. I love it. Let's do it. Bring out the notebooks. Let's talk some puck. This is going to be a fun one.
All right, let's go. First up, Adam Fox. There we go. Pretty easy, Steve. I'm going an A, you an A minus. Tell me why.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a listener here, this is no surprise. I mean, Fox really is such a meaningful player on this roster. I mean, when you break it down, he's QB1 on the power play. And when he's on the ice, you don't question his performance, and when you do question his performance, it's usually he's injured. He just came back from an injury. He's still dealing with some. Overall, I mean, you saw the team perform right when Fox came back to the lineup. I mean, that's when we started going on a little streak, started winning some games. Adam Fox is so important to this team. A minus for me, little bit tick lower because again, you gotta stay healthy, man. That this is a little bit of a concern. Year after year for me, it's not the performance, it's can he stay on the ice. A minus for me.
Yeah, Jenna actually sent me this really funny TikTok the other day of like this couple beating a dead horse, and it was like, "This is how we talk about things." I feel like that's you and I, Steve, on here. Like we've talked about Adam Fox the last four epis. You know how we feel about him. I just also want to state, like, we are not here to mock. We're having fun today because the season's over. We've kept it professional for 8 months. This is just us having fun and trying to have fun with you guys too and keep it light. So anyway, with that said, Adam Fox, we know who he is. And the one thing I will say, just based on early quotes out of breakup day, is it seems like he's in a much better mental space with this team. Still wants to see what it's like moving forward. So hopefully he's a Ranger beyond us talking about him here. Next up, Braden Schneider. Wow. This one was pure off potential. We want to see that turn kinetic. I didn't feel like we did this year, Steve. Why a D?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no surprise here. Schneider was the subject of trade rumors ahead of the deadline, and I think Jury probably set a strong asking price for him, and things didn't really pan out. And I've said this before. I thought at the end of last year and even the year before that, I thought Schneider was taking steps forward and say, you know what, let's give him a little bit of an increased role. Let's have him step up. After Truber and some other dogs leave Miller on the defensive side, let's see him take that next step. And for me, we didn't see any of that. I mean, there was nothing there. So, I mean, moving forward on my end, what else is there to see in terms of Schneider's game? I think you've seen him peak. I don't think he contributes, anything more than he has, moving forward. And that's the question, do we want, this type of player around? So for me, it's a D.
I remember when Mike came on our show, my brother, he's a Ranger fan, great with the history, but he's not like Steve and I, where we're talking about this all the time. He talked about Keandre Miller last year, like, hey, has he hit his ceiling? When we talked to Rangers Ed that on that podcast last summer, we talked about, well, does Braden Schneider have more potential here? Does he have an upside? You talked about it too last year, Steve, at length, and we haven't seen it. I mean, the numbers don't really speak to that. I thought he was steady. This felt like I was grading a student that can do more, right? There's like the kid that you're like, all right, he's not, he's going to go into trade school and he's going to take an internship and leave halfway through the day. And that's what he's going to do. That's his thing. Okay. But this is Braden Schneider. We're expecting you to be AB honor roll. We're expecting you in the AP class, man, of defensemen. We want you to be top four. And unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing right now. Like, I think he's a really great third pairing defenseman on a Stanley Cup team. But I don't think he should be paid the bag this offseason. When is his contract up? Is it this offseason? Because
this offseason, yeah.
It's exactly like the Keandre Miller situation, I feel like, except one was more offensively gifted and one is more of a defensive stalwart. But, man, D, we were both bang on there, I think, bro.
I think in terms of your analogy, spot on. You want that student to get there and be honors, but I think the reality is going to hit the teacher, and that's all of us. That student just can't get to honors level classes and get to be an A. I think it's hit all of us, and you kind of reach a ceiling at some point and say, oh well, next player.
Well, we're talking about the golden child, the golden student. Oh, the teacher's pet, man. That's Gabe Perreault, baby. And he's earned every step. I said a B, you said an A minus, a little bit of a difference here. I didn't love to throw the minuses and pluses in too much, I'll be honest. But I want to know A minus, like, did you really think this was the guy you expected from that 2023 draft?
Yeah, and obviously we haven't reached his full potential yet, but I thought he took full advantage of being put in this situation. I thought he showed flashes of his skill, all around, that game changing potential. Got his first hat trick. Look at those numbers there: 19 points over the final 23 games for being put in. For his first kind of first full go, not full year, but first full opportunity. I'm very happy with it. I really don't think there was much more I could have asked. A lot of these things, I want to build off of that next year. And the expectation, of course, is going to be, for him next year, contributing throughout the whole course of a season and getting comfortable, because we all see it, you can enter sophomore slumps very quickly, so that's what I want to see out of Perreault moving forward. That's why I gave it an A minus, and I was kind of surprised, honestly, a little bit, that you gave him a B. So explain that.
Yeah, you know what? And this is kind of across the board, man. I want to see when the game's tight. I want to see Gabriel Perreault in they're playing Buffalo at the start of next season. They're playing Boston at the start of next season. Teams that are hungry, teams that are ready to gear up and get going in a Stanley Cup campaign. A team like Montreal. All right, I could name all those playoff teams, but that's my point. Maybe I've graded a little bit too much on potential or the future, but at least for right now, I think what impresses me about Perreault is that the ice is this guy's canvas. He's an artist, and I love that we saw the skill, the hands, the IQ. Can't teach that. This guy's book smart. This guy makes it happen, and I love to see that, man. But I don't think the reason I didn't give him an A, there was a point in the season I was critical because I didn't feel like he didn't blow me away. And we talked about this on the show in, I want to say January. Like, he didn't grab your attention off the screen. You didn't watch the game and lean forward. Whoa. But you did as the season went on. So I just wanted to look at the whole body of work and be honest about, where he was at the start of the year versus where he ended the year, which to me was A minus level, man.
Yeah, I think that combo was a little bit early on. I think he took full advantage after being bumped up. So with him, I'm very happy. I think he obviously should be rated the highest at all the young rookies that we had come out at the end of the year, and definitely a key contributor, on the top line at the start of next year. So pencil that in.
Yeah, brother. He is in college, or I guess the real world, whereas some of his other counterparts are still taking internships, if you know what I'm saying. All right. Igor Shesterkin. I mean, this one's bar none, no doubt. We know he's the horse in the back end. He's the engine, the V8 that gets this Mustang started, or for that matter, this Honda Civic 2001. So, Steve-O, A minus. Where's the minus? Where's the dash on the A?
Yeah, the dash comes from, you look at that and you say 25, 19, 6. Igor could have stole maybe a few more games. Not as full, but still, I think he's had better seasons. And of course, there were better teams surrounding him. And I think my little analogy there, the one person screwed more than the Rangers this year, but more than us Ranger fans, was Igor, by that pathetic offense, absolutely anemic offense, that the offense where we were going one period with one shot. That is so incredibly frustrating as a goalie to play your ass off and your offense only gives you one shot. And I saw the stat the other day. There was like 5+ periods this year where we only had one shot. I mean, that is ridiculous in the National Hockey League, even throughout the course of the year. I mean, that's unheard of. That's bottom of the barrel. You suck. And you feel bad for Igor. But at the same time, I still didn't feel like this was one of his stronger years. There were certain points where, the team's energy was just so down that, Igor wasn't playing up to that top level. And it's understandable. He still gets an A. He still was our best player, undoubtedly. But, compare that to prior years, that's where the minus comes. But still, A level on the same wavelength. So I'll get your thoughts. A.
I mean, I feel like of all the students in the classroom, man, this guy is pacing. He is valedictorian. I mean, um, you know, Igor, I think this was actually telling to me. And I said best season. I wanted to describe that just from this graphic. Like, to me, it showed us what he truly is made of. Because I think last year he struggled with the situation. He struggled to adjust from having a great team in front of him to suddenly not in the blink of an eye. So I commend him for his effort in that respect. And personally, for me, I'm such a numbers guy, but I don't fully believe his numbers tell the whole story. So that's why I went A. And forgive me, I didn't put the plus 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 next to it. I think he got extra credit, man. I think he got extra credit on the test.
Yeah, I still an A. You know, could have been a little bit better, but again, still the best player. I still agree with you. So
Fair, fair. All right, JT, baby. This one's, I mean, we could probably talk about this till the cows come home. But
yeah,
JT, I went C. It's funny, I went a minus here, I guess. I don't know, but what I was thinking. But I went C minus, you went C. We're just on the same wavelength, man.
yeah. And this one, I'm actually a little surprised that both of us didn't go lower than C on this, because I'm sure I haven't seen anyone do any rankings out there, but I'm sure in the coming weeks, a lot of other outlets will put New York Rangers rankings out there, and I'm sure JT will certainly be the highest on these rankings. A lot of people will put him in D, a lot of people will put him in F, and I'm surprised we put him in C. And I think for me, this year was just too lopsided. I think you know what you get in terms of JT. Injuries derailed him. I mean, how many games did he not play in this year? And even when he came back, he wasn't on that same level. And even before the injuries, you know, how many OT games was it where JT was the one who stepped up earlier in the year when this team couldn't get anything offensive going? And JT was the one that stepped up, you know, and was able to get the big goal for us, and he's got it a handful of times. You know, that's the JT Miller, the dog that we know. I'm expecting a strong bounce back year from JT next year. And you know what kind of player he is. You know, you saw it last year when he first came to this team. And again, it's very hard to get up there in front of the mic and defend this team when the rest of the team is not really doing anything. And that's the struggles that JT Miller has at the end of the year. I'm not defending him, but I'm just saying it is very hard to do. And, you know, I kind of set the body language I'll put aside. You know, that's kind of garbage. I gave JT Miller a C. You know the type of player he is. You know he's going to rebound. You know he's a dog. C for me. Why C minus for you?
Fighting words, Steve. Oh, I love it out of you on this wonderful Friday. All right. JT for me, because I just could not sink below. Like, we know that this wasn't JT's best season, but we also know that he had the injury literally coming into the season. I think he battled it the entire year. And we never really learned what it was. I didn't see anything from breakup day today. I think it was his shoulder. Like, I think it was his shoulder and something with his leg. He was battling injuries. He talked a lot about at the end of the season, or at least on the locker room clean out today, about his mental health and how he can channel that fire in a good way for the team, but he tries not to let it destroy him. And we talked about that all year on the pod. I just think this season was colored by playing through injury, deflated body language when the team needed him to be a leader, and great post-game monologues that didn't reflect his play on the ice. I just want to see the player that arrived in New York. I thought JT to end 2025 felt like such a positive. And then this season, although he had some of those overtime winning goals, he just didn't feel like the JT Miller that they acquired in that big trade. So I went C minus. I just can't stoop to a D or an F, considering that he was literally plagued by injuries.
Yeah, I'm with you too. And even though this element shouldn't be considered, and I didn't consider it, but you know, you look at his play in the Olympics as well, you know, and that just shows you he's a dog. He's going to rebound. I certainly think he should not be an F for sure, and a lot of Ranger fans will give him an F this year. Trust me on that.
Oh yeah, I could believe it too. But I want to keep going controversy here, so we're gonna go Borgen. Will Borgen played top four, I thought, last season. I was high on him when they traded Kako for Borgen. Um, he's got great foot speed, he's got great size, but this year was a C in my book, a C in Steve's book, and I was bullish on him, but again, I just feel like he didn't show the upside from last season. That this year proved to me that he's at best like a second pair guy. And if that, maybe third pair in certain situations. So, Steve, what was your analysis of Will Borgen this year?
For maybe your glasses are blocking it out there, but I actually got a C minus there. It's invisible, you can't see it. I'm going a tick lower than you are with Borgen. Okay. A little disappointing. I just thought the production that we saw at the end of last year was very promising. A bit with the injuries, a little bit this year, but even that, when able to come back, I thought he didn't really produce as many points as he did last year down the stretch, and he was able to do more last year, given fewer games last year. So that's obviously a little bit of a disappointment. What I can say I do like about Borgen's game is I think defensively he's been consistent, like you mentioned. He's really not on the ice for that many goals against. I think he's one of the best on our team defensively, in terms of his plus minus. But in terms of that, playmaking we saw last year, didn't really carry over this year and got stale at some point. So C minus for me for Borgen.
I think we're both on the same page on the textbook here. Like Will Borgen, I feel like he's very fast. He's mobile. Like in his own end, he can back check well. He can trail check well. He gets his stick. He's got length. He can move his feet. But Borgen, to me, was a player that I was really excited to see how he could build on the blue line offensive end. Like that's where the Rangers need that. When Fox went down for 27 games, Gavrikov was an unexpected producer, but like Borgen, he might be the one guy I expected the most offense out of outside of your Adam Fox. Just didn't feel like we got that this year, Steve. I think you hit that nail square on the head. Square on the head.
Yep, and I think you summed it up well that, he's a second pair, maybe even a third pair, at best, but can't put him higher.
All right. Vinny T, I feel like this is the easy one. Hopefully that game on what was that Wednesday was not the last as a blue shirt, but we can only hope. I gave him an A. Steve-O B plus. Why not an A here, Steve?
I want to ask you, why not lower? I think this is very high for Vinny. I think, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy. Vinny will be on this team next year. I'm like 90% sure. I don't think his stock will be moved in the offseason. I don't think it's going to be high then. And I think what he brings to the table. And I think it's so important to a team that's looking to retool and not rebuild. Vinny's a piece of that, 100%. However, I think a lot, because we're at the end of the season and we picked the play a little bit, but you have to go back to the beginning of the season and how many games did Vinny have where he did notch a point? He was very cold to start the year, and he was on that cold streak of not registering a point. Almost 10 games to start the year. He was very cold at one point, so that's why I'll go not the A. And again, not the best year that Vinny's had, but what he brings to the table. He's a dog. That's why I gave him the B plus.
All right, so I'll give you a little tidbit of information. This does not discredit what you just said with his production, but the reason he was out in the beginning of the year was because he said today in the locker room cleanout day, the exit day, that he had a lung infection that they had to surgically drain. So I'm sure that was probably a little bit of a wear on him. Now, we made these grades before we knew any of this information, and I totally get what you're saying. Where my angle was for the A, which I didn't even write, didn't have enough room to on our little graphic here, is that I think Vincent Trocheck was brought in to be a more physical, in-your-face, two-way defender to play with Artemi Panarin. And although he's become integral to this team, and I personally hope he is in the near future, next season, I don't think the numbers that he put up with Panarin, like in the President's Trophy year, think about how many assists he gets playing with Loff and Panarin. you shave 10 points off and you're pretty much where he's at right now. So, yeah, I just think it has to do a little bit with the fact that he was a pivot with a star versus a pivot that's driving play. I think that line all drove play that season, but I do think it's a little bit different when you're working up the boards and you pick a puck off the wall, it goes to Panarin and he scores. That was an offense that was very north south. They could move off the rush like anybody. So yeah, I think Trocheck, to me, this is his game. He played it as billed, in your face, winning faceoffs, one of the top faceoff takers in the NHL, and no overcharge to me. Like, his contract's great. So yeah, I got to give him an A here.
For me, an A like signifies you really couldn't play that much better. So for me, I didn't get the feel that Trocheck, gave it all and had that much of it, a year. And I'd still give him a B plus. Even if I knew before putting this that he had that lung issue. And looking back, that clearly affected his start to the year when he was cold and silent. I didn't forget that. But again, it's a little bit more on the table that I thought that Vinny could have put out there. But I do agree with you on the physical aspect. He's a dog.
I can't argue with you, actually. I really can't. All right, let's go. Let's go with the two guys that probably caught the most flack the last 2 seasons. Alexis Lafrenière, number 1.
If you showed me this graphic earlier in the year, probably like 3 months ago, I would have been like, what the hell? Like, we were both ready to trade him for cents on the dollar. I would have probably gave Loff an F. But again, it's the tale of two halves. That second half, the end of the year for Loff was so, dominant. You got to raise him up. And that's why I think both of us gave him a B. I mean, first half was brutal. Let's not forget that. I mean, really was hard watching him. But he turned it around, and for me, I just moving forward, I'm so confused. Like, to start the year next year, starts are so important, especially in the NHL. What Loff are we getting? Are we going to get lazy Loff, or are we going to get the Loff for the second half this year that we saw step up, drive play, create opportunities, score multiple goals every single night? Like, what Loff are we getting? At this point, I really don't know. I'm confused. I don't know. So I'll give him a B on this one. I'm surprised I got up there and gave him a B. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if you're in the same boat, but I think he deserves it after the second half.
I'm just so on the fence. Lazy Loft, man. You are cooking today. With some cilantro. All right. If we're setting the expectation, like, if he's gonna be a 60-point producer and playmaker, then I think he produced a really exciting second half, and he found some great chemistry with Mika and Perreault. But like you said with Loft, is it a toe drag? How you doing? I'm walking around 3 players and dishing it, Loft, or are we going to get it's been 10 games and Loft hasn't had a point? But at least for this season, reflecting on 25-26, I think he did everything to escape the allegations, at least for now. And I also think his net front presence was such a welcome addition without Chris, Captain Tippin, Mr. Clutch, Kreider, Mr. PG. So without Kreider, it felt like a void. And I feel like Loff was actually the player I least expected to be a net front guy, but I think it's a welcome addition. And I think that boosted his stock this season.
Yeah. I pretty much, I don't got anything else to add on Loff. I mean, his second half really saved him from an F. I mean, that's how bad he was in the first half. So, I mean, this is going to be an ongoing conversation in the offseason. And, the Loft that we get for the first 2 weeks of next year is going to show us, which version of Loft it is. And it's a really big part of this team. If he's there, it's going to be hard to beat this team. If he's not, it's going to be very easy for this team to repeat the beginning of this year.
It's not about how you start, it's how you finish. Let's go Will Cuylle. Oh, wait, I have to remove a graphic to put Cooley's in. Okay, then.
I'm glad we're getting to Will Cuylle, if we're getting to Will Cuylle, because this is going to be a fun debate.
All right, I like that. Let's go, Will Cuylle. Here he is.
The A, explain that one.
I think Will Cuylle is what he is, man. Like, at this point, I don't think he's going up from here. And I think if you manage him the way he should be, he's a third-line winger. he led the team in hits. He has 2 300 hit seasons in a row. He's the third best in the last 3 seasons combined in hits, 800 total, 20 goal scorer. Like, that's exactly who he is. Net crasher, top 10 hitter. I just think that he's pretty darn good for his position and his role. But it's kind of like what people complained about with Barkley Goodrow. I don't want to see Will Cooley playing first or second line all year either. So why a B?
I agree with you 100% in terms of Cooley's role on this team. I think you've played it, you've panned that out pretty well. I think that's his role. You put him on that role, and he's going to thrive. In that sense, he's an A. This is probably the player that I think that we disagree the most on. I think he's a B. I thought his production in terms of last year dropped off very noticeably from last year. I think he was a little sluggish at sometimes, meaning there were periods where there'll be 3-4 nights in a row where he was invisible, and I'm like, where is Cooley? Especially even a player like Panarin, leaves right away. You gotta step up and fill in needs where they are, and that's so important in the NHL. And this team needed offensive scoring at certain points of the season and didn't get some from Will Cooley. I kind of wanted to see him take that next step. I agree with you. There's a ceiling to everybody, and I fully understand Will Cooley's a ceiling. I think he plays quite well in that role. He is the ideal piece to a championship team, 100%. Hopefully we could both agree on that. But for me, it was just I want to see a little bit more consistency, and the production dropped for me a little bit. So that's why I gave him a B.
All right, that's fair. You know what? Where I do agree with you was it felt like if he went on stretches last season, it was like 2-3 games. This season, like around the Winter Classic, he went like the whole month of January without a point. So
Exactly.
I do see that. But also, to me, Will Cooley's not that guy. Like, Will Cooley should not be the guy that we're looking at for offense. He's the guy I want to look at to say, like, he's a top tier bottom sixer. But you know what? You and I could argue about this, but it's coming to come down to how the Rangers assess him and where they want to play him next season. Because this year, he did play great. And I think I like that at the end of the season, they were playing him on the third line, like in a position where he's going to succeed. But I agree with you. To me, I just felt like last season, I knew that we weren't going to get a Will Cooley that was going to continue to excel. Like Chris Kreider was a player that was a 20 goal scorer for so long, and we knew had more in the tank. And then he finally had the 50 goal season. I think Will Cooley is a 20 goal scorer. Like, I don't think Will Cooley's going to take a jump to 50. And if he does, God bless.
Yep. In a year where the Rangers finished as low as they did on the bottom of the barrel, I can't give Will Cooley anything higher than a B. Like, I just can't.
Fair. Vlad Gavrikov, though, the free agent, the weapon that they brought in free agency. We want you to play defense. He goes out and puts home 14. All right, Steve-O. It's A's across the board. I figured we finish off all positive here with Gavrikov. I loved his swag. I loved his energy. I love that he wasn't afraid to chirp and get in the mix. And of course, who expected the offensive stick from Vlad Gavry? All right, Steve-O, an A. Finishing off positive here.
Everything that you'd hoped he'd be, plus more when we originally brought him in. And that's what he was. He was undeniably the most steadiest, consistent piece on our back end throughout the whole year. Whether it was his ability to stay on the ice, when he stayed on the ice, what he gave you. I thought that was him. He's going to be a mainstay moving forward for sure. And of course, the offensive explosion, like you mentioned, we'll call it an explosion because that's what it was. None of us saw that coming. Even on nights where he wasn't, somebody needed to step up. He's the type of player where you say it's not his job to step up, and he stepped off offensively. And that's why we have to give all the credit to him. 14 goals in a season for him, I think is marvelous. You'd love to see that again. Who knows if we will, but Gavrikov was everything, man. A for him. I know we're not A+ guys, but it's really hard. If we were, there could be another imaginary plus right there next to both of our ratings, because he really was, the best player we brought in.
Yeah, let me tell you. I don't know if we're going to see 14 goals the rest of the contract, and I don't even think we can complain about that, right? Like, this guy, wow. But I will say this too, like something that I really loved about Gavrikov's game is like it really is Slavin-esque. Like he really poke check, stick check, positioning, where his feet are. I love it. He's mobile. Um, his physicality not only is initiating, but it's taking hits to make plays. I think he's one of one. He's got that D highlight reel package dog. Um, it's funny. Igor actually said we're going to talk about a bunch of the locker room exit quotes and kind of what they might mean. Igor said that Gavrikov was one of the main reasons in front of him he was able to survive this season. So he really name dropped Gavrikov as like the number one reason he was able to get through the year. And Steve-O, in terms of Gavrikov, of his future, we don't know anything. This is based on no reports. You think he's going to stay a blue shirt?
I think he's going to stay a blue shirt, at least for the immediate future. You know, if he's able to start the year next year with Adam Fox, I think that'll pan out well. And I think, you know, Fox is able to stay healthy. You know, I think you're going to see strong results. Man, you know, I can't help but to think, you know, even for the last few playoff runs that we had, Gavrikov was such a piece that if we had on some of those teams that with that offensive production, man, would be such a better team. Gavrikov is a piece that you want when you get into the playoffs. So I'm certainly very happy that he's a blue shirt.
You know what's funny, Steve? For the longest time, I always said I wish Michael Grabner or Pavel Buchnevich was on the 22 and 24 teams. But now that you say that, wow, I never thought of it like that. Imagine a Gavrikov on like the 2015 team.
Yeah.
I don't even know where he'd play now that you mention that.
Yeah, and he's, you know, if he's able to chip in with 3 goals in a playoff run, I mean, your team is gonna be, you know, he just takes your team to the next level. So you can't help but think that, you know, and you hope moving forward, you know, he gets that opportunity because he is, man, is he such a good piece.
Well, you know what, Steve? This isn't where the grades end. You and I also went through the book and chopped up the youngins. We went to elementary level and said, all right, let's take it down a level. The expectations are different here, but we got to talk about them. We have grades for the other players as well. We're going to talk exit day. We're going to talk about it all this offseason before May 5th, before the draft in June, before free agency in July. We are a New York Rangers podcast that's going to continue to cover this team. We aren't backing down. We're talking about it all. And we're doing it here on Puck Talk CS, Steve.
Man, new vibes are ready for this Rangers team. Starting with you. I love it. Always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.